Absolutely, it's going to be FOMO for Bitcoin globally. If you're another country looking at the US and it actually moves forward on acquiring a strategic reserve with 1 million Bitcoin, you can no longer be certain of how the future will develop vis-a-vis crypto assets and cryptocurrencies. And as a result, you're going to need to get in line. You're going to need to stake your position before it is too late. XRP is an asset that has sustained and proven itself over a long period of time. It has a very strong community and very strong technology underneath. From my point of view, we haven't seen what it can do because the company Ripple has been engaged in this difficult lawsuit with the SEC.
Matt begins by reflecting on the monumental shifts in the crypto space over the past year. From mere speculation to serious discussions of the U.S. government potentially acquiring 1 million Bitcoin, the Overton window of possibility has drastically expanded. This is no longer fringe talk. It's a realistic scenario shaping the future of global finance. This trend has the potential to ignite a domino effect. If the U.S. pursues Bitcoin stockpiling, other nations could experience FOMO, fear of missing out. This urgency to secure positions in crypto assets might spark a wave of nation-state adoption, reshaping how governments perceive and manage cryptocurrencies. Bitcoin's market behavior, Hougan explains, has a unique reflexivity. As more participants adopt Bitcoin, its utility, liquidity, and perceived value increase, further reducing the likelihood of its demise. This self-reinforcing loop could drive Bitcoin from its current status as an alternative asset to a mainstream monetary tool.
Please take a little time to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications for more videos like this. You can also check out our other videos on cryptocurrencies and the overall digital asset space and drop your comments and observations in the comments section below. Everything you do helps with the YouTube algorithm and immensely contributes to the channel's growth. Thanks and enjoy the video.
Yeah, it's been a pretty amazing week at the end of a pretty amazing year, right? We have come a long way this year. I feel like we've just shifted the Overton window of what's possible in crypto. There are now active discussions about the US government buying 1 million Bitcoin for a Bitcoin stockpile. We're seeing, filings and statements. It's just an incredible time to be involved in this industry. Absolutely, it's going to be FOMO for Bitcoin globally. If you're another country looking at the US and it actually moves forward on acquiring a strategic reserve with 1 million Bitcoin, you can no longer be certain of how the future will develop vis-a-vis crypto assets and cryptocurrencies. And as a result, you're going to need to get in line. You're going to need to stake your position before it is too late. So I think it will kick off a wave of purchases from nation states, and the impact on the market will be significant. Look, countries around the world own more than 20% of the gold market. Until we get to equilibrium there, you can say that that's a gap that needs to be filled. It's looking increasingly likely that that will be filled in the next couple of years. There's FOMO, which is certainly real. And, I expect to see, let's say, wirehouses who have been slow to allow access to Bitcoin ETFs. I expect to see that process accelerate. I expect to see more institutions looking at their peers like Emory University adding allocations to Bitcoin and saying, maybe we should get off zero as well. But there's another element to it, Tony, which is the reflexivity in the Bitcoin market is actually fundamental, which is different from how reflexivity works in other markets. By that, I mean, as more people adopt Bitcoin and as the price goes up, to a certain point, Bitcoin legitimately becomes more valuable because it is more widely accepted, it is more liquid, it is more established, it's less likely to go to zero. And I think you're going to start to see that positive fundamental reflexivity playing out in Bitcoin over the next couple of years as this truly goes from alternative to mainstream, which is the mega trend that we're seeing right now. Yeah, I think at least you have to consider that as a possibility, right? If you back up 5 years or 8 years or 10 years, people talked about this idea of central banks adding Bitcoin to their balance sheets or governments positioning strategic stockpiles of Bitcoin, but it was crazy talk. You would be laughed out of rooms for suggesting that. Now the poly market odds, I think, are at about 50% on whether the US will move forward on this or not. We have sitting senators putting forward bills that would push this forward. It's now firmly within the realm of possibility. And that means you can't discount it if you're evaluating how to position yourself in this asset. It certainly increases the upside potential. It also makes the asset extremely hard to short because you could wake up any morning with this news and you don't want to be on the wrong side of it. So I think it's really important. Whether we get there or not, I don't know, but I think you have to consider it as being possible. Yeah, I think the really incredible thing is I expect 2025 flows into Bitcoin ETFs to exceed 2024 flows. So as much as we've seen, I think it's really just a down payment on this market. If we fast forward a few years, I would not be surprised to see, Bitcoin ETFs owning, 10, 20% of the Bitcoin market. I certainly think that's within the realm of possibility down the road. It has been an incredible launch, the most successful ETF launch of all time, but it's still true that most traditional investors have not yet allocated. So I do think this is just a down payment, and people probably underestimate where we can go from here. Outside of Bitcoin, which is, I think, standalone as the leading monetary asset, when we get into this other space, I'm excited about what's happening on ETH. I'm excited about what's happening on Solana. I'm excited with the reinvigoration of XRP. I'm excited about what's happening on Avalanche and Aptos and Sui and Monad and Berachain and many other protocols, right? I'm excited about all of them. And I could try to throw a dart and hit the one that is going to emerge, but it's going to be hard to find that, and it may be many of them. And so if that's your point of view, if it's your mom, if it's me, if it's an endowment, I think many people share that point of view, and for them, an index-based solution is a really nice choice. Yeah, I think they could be really substantial. The net flows into ETH ETFs just went positive. We obviously saw a lot of outflows from ETH upon conversion to an ETF, and the inflows have just surpassed that. But I think ETH is really appealing to an institutional audience. We talked about this a few times on the podcast previously. But institutions love the utility of ETH. They love the cash flow-like characteristics of ETH. They're very interested in stable coins and tokenization, which is being built on ETH. ETH is sort of removing the last shackles of regulatory clouds that have been hovering over it. I think you're going to see a lot of institutions wanting exposure to ETH in the new year. I'd add one more thing, Tony, which is I think you're going to see a lot more investors looking for broadly diversified exposure to crypto. One of the things that's happening right now in crypto is what we discussed at the beginning of the pod, which is the Overton window is shifting on what's possible. Could we see ETFs on more assets? Could we see institutions building on chains that are maybe, don't have ETFs associated with them? We're starting to see that already. And I think a lot of institutions are just going to want broad-based exposure. So I'm excited about ETH specifically. I'm excited about other assets. I'm excited about index. I think that's going to grow substantially in 2025.
XRP stands out as a case study of resilience amid adversity. Hougan highlights how Ripple's long battle with the SEC has constrained XRP growth, akin to operating with two arms tied behind your back. However, should this legal cloud lift, XRP's proven technology, liquidity, and strong community could position it for a breakout year. Hougan acknowledges frustrations with current leadership, particularly Gary Gensler's tenure at the SEC. However, the approval of Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF under this administration signals a willingness to engage with crypto. A more crypto-friendly administration could unlock even greater possibilities, including the launch of staking ETF and refined ETF structures with features like in-kind redemptions.
Yeah, unfortunately, because of the regulations, I can't comment much more than what's on the file. But yes, NYSE Arca filed to uplist BITW as an ETP. We'll see how that works through the system. But I think if you broaden out again, there are two mega themes that are going on right now. One is that we're getting a regulatory shift from no ETFs to a broad-based ETF market. We actually saw that under the current administration, right? As much as we all worry about Gary Gensler and many of us dislike Gensler's leadership of the SEC, we did see the approval of spot Bitcoin and spot Ethereum ETFs under that administration. We're in the ETF era of crypto. I think particularly if we get a change to a more pro-crypto environment, there's a potential for multiple crypto ETPs. So I think that's one thing to pay attention to. And then the other thing is what I mentioned before, which is I think the demand for index-based products could be really substantial. If you believe institutional capital is coming into this space and wants a small allocation to crypto, many of them will just want to make a diversified bet. That's what they do in stocks. That's what they do in bonds. That's what they do in real estate. That's what they'll want to do in crypto. So I think that could be a significant trend if we see progress on this uplisting application in 2025, and fingers crossed, we'll see what happens. XRP is an asset that has sustained and proven itself over a long period of time. It has a very strong community and very strong technology underneath. From my point of view, we haven't seen what it can do because the company Ripple has been engaged in this difficult lawsuit with the SEC, which is sort of like trying to operate with two arms tied behind your back. I think if we fast forward a year into the future, if we get positive developments in that space, you'll see XRP unleashed. What can it do in the market? It's proven its technology. It has a unique approach to the market. It has a strong community behind it. It has liquidity. It has interest from traditional Wall Street firms. We saw that with SocGen, expanding their stablecoin onto the ledger earlier this week. I think it's a really interesting idea. Like, what can this asset do if it is unleashed? So that's sort of the investment thesis without going too deep into the ways it's sort of iterating and developing. And then, from a filing perspective, again, constrained with what I can say, but I've said this before every time we file, which is that Bitwise doesn't file for fun. We file because we think there is a pathway to launch a product. We're not always right. We filed for a Bitcoin ETF for 5 years before we eventually got there. So take that with that grain of salt. But the reason we filed is because we thought there was a pathway to get it launched. Otherwise, we wouldn't have filed. And we're excited to continue to pursue that in 2025, particularly with the new administration. Yeah, you do see abroad, internationally, you see ETH staking ETPs, and obviously that makes it more appealing. It makes it a net positive to own. It overwhelms the expense ratio. I do expect to have, those sorts of conversations with regulators happening next year. I also expect, people to start to push for in-kind creations and redemptions on ETPs. So we're going to get some efforts to iterate on the existing ETPs to make them even more perfect, as well as new ETPs. I do think hopefully that dialogue will continue and sort of accelerate in 2025.
Hougan concludes with a vision of crypto investing akin to traditional asset classes. Just as institutions diversify their portfolios across stocks, bonds, and real estate, crypto will follow suit. Broad-based index products could become a staple for institutions seeking exposure to the sector, providing a diversified bet on the future of blockchain technology. Matt Hougan's insights offer a roadmap for what's to come. From government adoption to institutional FOMO and the rise of ETF, the crypto landscape is evolving at an unprecedented pace. Whether you're a seasoned investor or a curious observer, 2025 promises to be a pivotal year. Stay tuned as we continue to explore these groundbreaking developments.
Please like and subscribe my channel.